participants in the second session of India MSME Defense Week on strategic partnerships in defense sector. I will now invite Ravi Sehgal, immediate past chairman, EPC India, to welcome all the delegates with his address.
Thank you, Jaya. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Eli Hefetz, Corporate Regional Director, Rafael Private Limited, Israel. Captain Vikas Sood, Defense Advisor, High Commission of India, Colombo, Sri Lanka. Mr. Demeke Atnafu Ambulo, Consul General of Ethiopia in Mumbai, India. Mr. Patho Roy Chaudhary, Commercial Lead, Lockheed Martin, India. Mr. Manan Jai Singhani in West India. Mr. P.C. Tripathi, President, Defense and Strategic Industries Association of India. A very good afternoon, and I extend my warm welcome to all of you at this session, the country sessions on strategic partnerships in defense sector. Ever since the ancient times, military or defense diplomacy has played an important role in guiding the directions of trade, economic and socio-cultural relations with the foreign nations. With the advent of colonialism by Europeans through commercial statecrafts, the military diplomacy got assimilated with the diplomacy of commerce and trade, while it remained as an arm of showing force and the subjugation of weaker nations. Today's military or defense diplomacy is highly evolved, and its scope is ordinarily beyond any easy comprehension of the civilian knowledge perception. Among the many reasons of this overarching scope of military diplomacy, one is the enormous values of the defense equipments in the international markets. India, being the largest democracy in the world, it has been able to carve its own place in the defense diplomacy and strategic partnerships arena. When it bought Sukhoi 30 MKI in the mid-90s from Russia, it was able to configure the same aircraft with the best available of the subsystems after procuring them from several other nations, such as Israel and France, besides integrating it with its own homegrown technologies, thus making it one of the most potent fighter aircrafts in the world. This perhaps was one of an example of a successful Indian defense diplomacy. In today's times, when India's own defense manufacturing is striving to attain leadership in critical defense technologies, defense diplomacy and strategic partnerships have a vital role to ensure necessary partnerships and tie-ups for successful implementation, as well as acquiring adequate market for the project. The defense diplomacy and strategic partnerships have acquired even more significance, as today many defense projects are multilateral in nature, involving joint research collaborations and development among two or more nations. The trade in defense products are also guided largely by the foreign policy and national security implications with the partner countries. With the strong vision, the current government of India is focusing on strengthening India's position as defense manufacturer globally through defense diplomacy across the world. And we have seen this over the period of last few years, and especially the last 2 or 3 years, where a lot of defense discussions have taken place at the highest level between India and several other countries. While MSMEs already contribute to 25% of the total value of defense exports from India, in future, due to this, the Indian engineering sector is bound to receive a major boost in the near future in the international markets. Keeping in view of the above, I'm happy that today EPC India is organizing such a major platform for MSMEs to sensitize them about the major initiatives of the Government of India towards strengthening India's defense diplomacy and strategic partnerships, and how India can look forward to the future in the global markets as the emerging leader in the defense manufacturing sector. The time now has come, we speak of Atmanirbharta in India, which would mean that to develop things locally with partnerships and to sell, of course, across the globe. I'm extremely grateful to the Ministry of Defense, Department of Defense Production, Defense Research and Defense Organization for extending their invaluable support. I once again welcome the eminent guest speakers from the various missions and departments overseas. My sincere thanks to honorable guests who have graced this occasion today. I'm thankful to all the supporters and teamwork by EPC India, which has created this platform. I wish all the best to the participants and look forward to this very productive session. With these few words, I hope and wish that you take best advantage of the interactions with eminent speakers who are present here and make this session very useful. Thank you. Over to you,
Thank you,
Jaya.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for setting the tone of the session as how strategic partnerships between countries can be extremely beneficial for all partners. Unfortunately, speaker from Israel, Mr. Eli, Corporate Regional Director of Rafael, is not able to join the session due to sudden medical issues. I will now invite our next speaker, Captain Vikas Sood, Defense Advisor, High Commissioner of India, Colombo.
Can you hear me, madam?
Captain Sood, yeah. We can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just share the presentation if you can confirm me that you can see it.
Yeah. We are sharing the presentation, sir.
Can I share the presentation from here?
Yes, yes, you can, sir.
Okay, so I'm just sharing the presentation from here. Can you see the presentation, madam?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for this great opportunity given to me to speak on this occasion. Dignitaries, respected dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I would like to take this opportunity to thank EPC India for providing this platform to discuss a very pertinent topic towards furthering Indian interest for defense exports in Sri Lanka, especially in light of the growing strategic relations of India and Sri Lanka in the geopolitics of Indian Ocean region. I will be covering my presentation under the following heads. Moving on, India with the conceptualization of the Defense Department of Production in 1962 embarked on a journey towards achieving greater self-reliance in defense production by developing a comprehensive production infrastructure and ecosystem. Thus, through this vision, the Ordnance Factory, defense PSUs, and more recently the private companies were evolved. In addition, with the active support of the Defense Research and Development Organization, most of the complex and highly advanced range of defense products could be realized. In the recent past, under the Make in India campaign conceived by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and motivated by his flagship mission of Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Indian defense industry has penned down a roadmap to emerge as a major defense manufacturing hub. To share some statistics with the August gathering, the overall size of the Indian defense industries stands at nearly 80,000 crore in 2019 and 20, with the contribution of the PSUs being about 63,000 crores and the private sector companies contributing about 17,000 crores. Thus, India aims to achieve a turnover of defense production of about USD 25 billion, which is nearly 181 crores, 3 times its present capacity, and an export of 5 billion in the aerospace and defense sector by 2025. Thus, fulfilling the twin objectives of self-reliance and exports. The capability of defense industry has galloped many folds over the years, thus engaging with a friendly nation for a long-term strategic partnership. It would not be wrong to say that there is nothing that Indian defense industry cannot manufacture as of today. The promotion of Indian defense products would further enhance our existing bilateral relationship, towards which this webinar is an ideal platform to understand the requirements of the Sri Lankan Armed Forces and how to achieve our goals through realizing a strategic partnership. I would also like to highlight that engagements with each country need a thorough study with respect to its environment and priorities, which was very rightly acknowledged by the previous speaker, to evolve a focused strategy to engage with a particular country. Hence, a conventional approach will definitely fail. And thus, I recommend that a coordinated and a cooperative policy of engagement will yield rich dividends. So it is essential to know what are the areas of engagement in Sri Lanka. Starting with that, I would like to bring out that the land systems suitable for the land forces in Sri Lanka, since the Navy and the Air Force also have a very sizable land forces. In addition, the police special forces would interest the following things which I have indicated in the slide. One particular thing to mention here would be that Sri Lanka contributes immensely towards the UN missions, and any products which are being utilized or employed in the UN missions are of very great importance to the Sri Lankan side, and thus would find a good use in future. Towards the same, talking of the bigger players, the Tata Defense, Mahindra, Bharat Forge, Ordnance Factory Board, Zen Technologies are some of the companies we are already engaging with, and I'm sure people attending this presentation would also note that they could also actively participate. Whilst we move on to the naval systems, in the Navy as well as the small Coast Guard which is there in Sri Lanka are now flashed on the slide, primarily spreading from relatively basic equipments in terms of anti-submarine warfare, corvettes, the advanced offshore patrol vessels, landing craft, to name a few, and the basic equipment or weapon fit on board smaller platforms. Herein again, GRSC, Goa Shipyard Limited, L&T, and Bharat Dynamics Limited have engaged in a small way, but there's enough potential for the other players as well. With respect to the aerospace and Air Force, the major interests are also flashed now. Some of these products we are already in some basic stage of engagement, wherein the L-70 gun upgrade is of great interest to the Sri Lankan side, with the 24 guns already given to the Sri Lankan by India. They are looking for upgrade, and the radar being upgraded from the Indira Mark 3 radars to the latest Rohini radars. And herein again, the HAL and Bharat Electrical Limited and L&T in a small way are already engaged. Having seen the areas of engagement with Sri Lanka, it is essential that very key characteristics of the Indian defense industry is highlighted to our viewers whenever we engage with them, and to understand that what does India, an association with India, would bring for them. So in the coming slides, I will just briefly touch upon these very critical characteristics. High quality. The Indian defense products are battle hardened by use of defense forces and have also undergone strict scrutiny and development process by the feedback from the users, who have the distinction of undertaking operations across the most challenging terrain and rough conditions. Supportability, wherein each product comes with an assurance of supportability through continued interaction and association of not only the company, but also the commitment of the defense forces, who take great pride in ensuring optimal availability of Indian products and also supportability across the life cycle, as well as part of the huge Indian defense inventory. Next would be the cost effectiveness. The products are sold at to any country, goes through a stringent process of cost assessment and reasonability based on the already benchmark price available with the Indian Defense Forces. Standardization and indigenization. The Indian defense products have highly realized standardization and indigenization procedures for long-term supports for the products. The defense industry is supported by strong and reliable base of nearly 8,000 MSMEs to sustain the defense supply chain. The DRDO and research organization of each and every PSUs, as well as the private sector and in-house design wings of the Indian Armed Forces, have contributed significantly in refining the design and the production capability of the defense industry. Thus, the products can be modified, customized, and upgraded based on the customer requirement. Further, the procedures are quite streamlined. Export authorization procedures have been made easier. Introduction of online procedures and portals have been facilitated, and the defense wings of mission abroad are mandated to support and expedite these procedures. Thus, with the advantages of engaging with the Indian defense industry understood, what needs to be done for achieving greater engagements through strategic partnership needs to be evolved, and the recommendations are as follows. The defense industry is highly competitive and also driven by strategic and political alliances. Thus, to approach the market, it is essential that the government, defense forces, public and private sectors collaborate and cooperate together in a common goal. Thus, singular platform in the form of a joint working group governed by Defense Cooperation Memorandum with a partner country be established to implement a strategic partnership. Exemption, subsidies and concession are one thing which needs to be considered, wherein many times the government resorts to gifts or grants to strategic projects to foreign countries. However, it would be in order to evolve a strategy of award of exemptions, concessions and subsidy by the government to products being offered as part of strategic partnership. This would make proposals competitive and also lucrative. The recently evolved policy of nomination of Indian companies country-wise as nodal point of contact to explore defense-related business interest is an excellent effort in the field of optimization of resources. However, the process needs to be evolved to optimize the resources and evolve procedures to maximize the results from the presence of local representatives from Indian companies. No cost, no commitment is not a new phenomenon and has the potential to generate huge interest among the users. However, many companies may not be always very willing to invest in such offers due to company policies or financial limitation. Thus, the feasibility of government support for offering products of strategic importance or long-term business opportunities be considered for NCNC offers and procedures for approval for the same may be evolved. Foreign direct investment is another avenue wherein Sri Lanka has always been very welcoming in various sectors. Thus, the avenues of opportunity for foreign direct investment in defense sector as a deliverable of strategic partnership may be considered towards cementing the relations. And obviously not to forget, the Defense Research and Development Organization has a huge potential to generate goodwill and interest in Indian products by engaging with the local research and development organizations and supporting their R&D initiatives, and even identify avenues of collaborative R&D through developing a strategic bond, and which could also be part of this strategic partnership. And lastly, I would like to highlight that above all, the defense line of credits should be offered as part of this strategic partnership initiative, wherein the import of Indian defense goods and services would be available at attractive credit terms as part of the line of credit. In conclusion, I would like to say the historic relationships shared between India and Sri Lanka are testimony to the bonds that the two nations share. The engagement has the potential to evolve into a strategic partnership through a robust organization and procedure to provide defense products of interest to Sri Lanka from India, which could not be achieved till 2010 due to the ongoing war in Sri Lanka. Hence, a cooperative and coordinated engagement strategy for closer and strengthened engagement in defense production is in our best interest, considering the geographic proximity and common security concerns. Further, India may also shoulder Sri Lanka's efforts in capacity building by developing a local ecosystem and walk the path of self-reliance and defense R&D in defense production as part of strategic partnership offer. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Captain Sood, for highlighting the areas of closer engagement between India and Sri Lanka and overall Indian Ocean region. Our next speaker is Mr. Demeke Atnafo Ambolo, Consul General of Ethiopia in Mumbai. He would throw light on the emerging market of Ethiopia for India in the defense sector, as well as other engineering sectors which are crucial for Indian exports. Mr. Ambolo? Captain Sood would request you to stop sharing the screen.
Sir, on the top of your screen, if you will just see, there will be one band. You just need to click on that, stop sharing. That will just pop up when you take your cursor on the top. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Ambolo.
I think he has to unmute himself.
He is disconnected.
No, we can see him, but I think he's muted. If he can unmute himself.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Mr. Mr.
Hello.
Ambalo, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, please start.
Thank you very much, Sagat. Outset, I would like to express our sincere appreciation for the EPC for inviting our Minister of Defense to my country presentation. And I would like to know that the invitation was accepted by the ministry, but due to the unforeseen and pressing issues, I couldn't make it. And I would like to make an apology for that. And my country presentation, I will give you an overview about Ethiopian arms and the machinery industry and the opportunities of partnership in metal and engineering sectors, mainly for civilian or commercial purpose. And before dwelling that on this topic under consideration, you know, Ethiopia is one of, I would like to give you a brief glance about Ethiopia. Ethiopia is one of the oldest and ancient country, never colonized. It has the second largest population in Africa. And when it comes to Indo-Ethiopian relationship, we have more than 20 bilateral partnership agreements. And when it comes to defense, I'm very happy to note that Indian military defense officials had already contributed a lot in the defense development of Ethiopia, where at the end of 1940s, the Ethiopian Military Academy, with the first one in Ethiopia and in Africa, was established by the help of Indian military officers. And coming to the topic under consideration, in order to forge strategic partnership and cooperation, it is prudent to apprise the participants about the status of Ethiopian arms and machinery industry. The government of Ethiopia had established the largest military industrial complex in 2010, responsible for production of both military and civilian products. And this complex is called as Metal and Engineering Corporation, which is known as METEC. As many of you are aware of this huge industrial complex. It is a government-owned industrial enterprise established to make a fundamental difference through a lead role in the industrialization of Ethiopia. Its objective includes, among other things, to design, manufacture, erect, and commission manufacturing industries, and as well as manufacturing and upgrading of weapons, equipment, and parts useful to defense and security forces. This complex, industrial complex, is producing two types of products. One is defense product, and the other is a commercial product for commercial purpose. In the defense equipment or products includes armored vehicles, ammunition, unmanned aerial vehicles, defense and security cars, as well as aircrafts. So, as I already mentioned, this military industrial complex established by the government to lead the industrialization of Ethiopia had been producing two different kinds of products. One is defense equipment and the other is for civilian and for commercial purpose. So the defense ones are the ones which I've already mentioned, including armored vehicles, ammunition, unmanned aerial vehicles, defense and security cars, as well as aircraft. And it is manufacturing this in partnership and collaboration with a number of different countries. When it comes to the civilian products, it is producing commercial product, which includes tractors, trucks, bus, engines, wagons, urban vehicles, welding machines, handy tools, tractor correctors, turbines, industrial machine, engineering machine, construction machine, mining machine, harvesting machine, and the water pumps. As you have seen, it is producing, making, manufacturing two products. One is defense product and the other is commercial products. Since 2000, the government which came to power, since 1 year, it's almost a 1 year, the government has tried to separate this huge complex into two, the civilian ones and the defense ones. Until recently, until 1 year, it had been under the Ministry of Defense and producing two different products. So now it was the defense part goes to the Ministry of Defense and the civilian commercial products came under what is known as Ethio Engineering Groups. So those products which had been produced under one military industrial complex are now separated into two. So this group which was producing products, engineering and metal products for civilian is called as Ethio Engineering Group. And its main objective was to expand and enhance engineering and technical capabilities through partnership with a number of countries. And the main focus was Asia, India, China, South Asia as well. And they are looking for partnership, especially in the automotive industry, in agricultural machinery industry, in basic metal industry, in power engineering industry, in machine building industry, in electric and electronics industry, on infrastructure machinery and IT, information technology. These industries which had been manufactured together with the defense under one complex, METEC, which is known as METEX, had been now divided, separated. So the civilian part came under the civilian ministry, and the defense part went to the defense under Ministry of Defense, which already I mentioned, including armament vehicles, ammunition, manufacturing of unmanned aerial vehicles, defense and security cars, and aircrafts. When we see the capability of India, especially in these two sectors, both in defense and commercial, there is a huge scope for possibility of forging collaboration and a partnership, either in joint manufacturing of joint venture or through technological cooperation. So especially the Ethio Engineering Group, which is manufacturing the metal and engineering parts, are looking for Indian products for joint venture or for engineering, for technological collaborations. And I'm appealing those Indian defense industries who are doing very well, especially in the engineering sector, to look at this offer, this appeal from the Ethiopian side, and we are more than happy to receive any request from your side to facilitate and bridge both with Ethiopian engineering group, with the civilian part, and with that of the military defense equipment parts. And this is what I want to share, especially on possibility of collaboration, the partnership existing in Ethiopia for the Indian metal and engineering sectors. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rambulo, for elaborating upon the opportunities for defense and engineering products in Ethiopia. Our next speaker is Mr. Commercial Lead, Lockheed Martin India, who would be highlighting upon strategic partnership between leading multinational company in the defense sector and OEMs in India. Over to Mr. Rai Chaudhary.
Thank you. I think respected audience and all the ones, the respected, I should say, foreign dignitaries here. I'll just quickly go through about point of view on the strategic partnership that we presently have in the defense sector. I will also like to take this opportunity to speak a little more about our
Sorry
present.
to interrupt. Can you be a bit louder, please, Mr. Raj Chaudhary?
Okay, is it okay? Maybe I will just use my headphone. Just bear with me for a second. Am I audible now? Better?
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. So quickly, I'll like to brief a little bit about the strategic partnership and how Lockheed Martin is changing the whole ecosystem here in India, as well as what's happening and how and what are the types of strategic partnership that we can look forward in India. So first and foremost, there is a saying that if you really want to feel that you are alive, just miss a milestone of one of the supplies, and then you'll realize how your the other partner follows you and keep making you alive. So what is the SP is expected to do today, and what India is trying to do is it should play a role of a system integrator. We want to build a huge ecosystem, extensive ecosystem comprising of development partners, specialized vendors, and the ideology is to bring up the MSME sector as well and become mutually benefited from two separate companies who directly do not compete with each other. So that's the whole bigger idea about the strategic partnership, what is going on. And likely it is the right idea, because if you see on 2008, before we have any kind of, I should say, orders or tenders here in India, Lockheed Martin had established excellently two joint ventures with Tata. One of the joint ventures, Tata Lockheed Martin Aerostructure Limited, are making empennages for the C-130J aircraft. This is the, I think, say quite a backbone of all the supplies. If you see the model here between strategic partnership between Tata and us, this partnership was not based on order. The second thing is the empennages built up in India are the only manufacturing plant Lockheed has over the globe. So there is no repetition. We are not repeating it, or neither it's an alternate source. It's the only source. And our idea is to make our partner the global source for such kind of products, bringing in a lot of value addition for Indian companies in our global value chain. Similarly, on the second JV, which is a Tata Sikorsky joint venture adjacent in Hyderabad again, it is also making the S92 cabins, which is again the single source for such products, which has now become one of the major supplier for all the high precision machining to all other OEMs in India. Now, the ideal partnership is always adding value to the customer and lowering cost as well. And every strategic partner is ultimately looking and leveraging cost versus return on the same lines. What are we trying to do here is, in order to become a defense manufacturing hub, India needs not only a strategic partnership, it requires three things. First, the financial investment. And I believe we have our FDI, investment promotion agencies, Commerce Ministry, and all looking at taking care of that. The second one is we need technology transfers. There are a lot of technologies that we are still yet to, I should say, produce or have an IP. So we need to immediately get those technologies here. And the third thing will be long-term operational involvement of foreign and defense OEMs. So this long-term operational involvement is also equally important, like the further two I spoke about, the financial investment and the technology transfer. Now, what are the challenges and how you can assure a defense OEM to come invest? That is number one, stand a chance to transfer the technology. Are there the policy conducive for such kind of a thing? Are we telling a foreign OEM, hey, you can do this thing without having an hassle, or are the government giving kind of a surety buying back of such kind of high-end defense equipment? Recently, we saw that the government of India has given FDI allowed 74% foreign direct investment into defense. Yeah, we welcome that move. Along with that, we also need to have a lot of matching policies. If we talk about a strategic partnership, we have various model, And I'll just bring in 2 to 3 datas which they recently brought out by the CAG in the parliament. Let's talk about the first data which said under the offsets, 90% of the offsets went to 15 companies. Now, if you say the statement, I do not agree with that. Yes, it is 15 companies because of the offset policies. One big company, suppose Lockheed Martin is giving an order to Tata, and this is not a hypothetical example, it's a practical example. We giving the order to Tata is actually flowing down to 600 more MSMEs under the JV that we have. We are giving those order to Tata just because of the policy, which will get me an option of minimum documentation, or else I have to list those 600 companies and get a permission from the Ministry of Defense, which will take more than 6 to maybe 3 years to complete all that, and we will never be able to complete our offset obligation on time. But you'll be surprised to understand that 75% of that money, whichever we give it to that big OEM, are actually flowed down in dollars to all the MSMEs that are in our tier one. So practically at one OEM, we are able to get and flow down our work and partnership to more than 600 companies. Now there are various types of partnership like this, and strategic marketing partnership is one of them. It is obviously a referral for other companies, and we do understand how we can make the best use of that. The second very important partnership which we see is a strategic supply chain partnership. And that is the one which is more vivid, and it is all around the world, and we see it quite often. We do have it here. If you see our direct tier ones, we are not only taking a sourcing from them, we are empowering them with technologies, we are empowering them with the procedures, we are kind of certifying them so that they not only will supply to Lockheed today, but will supply it to all other OEMs across the globe. When we establish a joint venture with Tata, we are the only players having starting a relationship with them. I think today they have more than 7 to 8 partnership on a similar lines. So these are something which examples of supply chain partnership on technology centers, type of alliances, and both the parties are equally important in this kind of relationship. We make a tangible product and we benefit out of that partnership, bring down cost, and obviously give more benefit to the country. On this particular kind of a partnership, always we maintain that there is a profitability factor here, but more than that, there is something which is empowering the nation, other nation, of building quality products which is useful otherwise. So these are very hard kind of, though it's very easy to speak about such partnership, it's very hard to maintain such things. Then there is a strategic integrated partnership, which we talk about like integration, all our agreements together to support each other in various forums. We also have a strategic technology partnership. And now in this particular partnership, I would like to enhance upon the lack of policy presently of sharing of TOT. Now just imagine if we share TOT as per the past policies on the DPP, what we could only do is whatever we buy back from that industry, 10% of that will be eligible for offsets. Now, if I am giving X company hypothetically a technology, it should be, I think, a technology which can let that OEM to export. He should be having a useful technology which he can maybe correlate and do a dual use. So that's very, very important when we are having a technology transfer and giving a kind of expertise and let that OEM use it not only with us, but for all other industries as well. So this is an assessment we need to understand. Presently under DAP 2020, we have an option of a third party evaluation of technology transfers. I really welcome that move, but it is still not clear what kind of technology transfers and who is going to do that and how much time it is going to take. And there is another important point of a strategically financial partnership. A lot of MNCs, I should say today, what I see today is a place where supply chain funding is on the forefront. Why can't we have something like an SCF? And why do we need always two defense companies to marry each other? Why not a defense company and a finance company marry each other? So I think there is a huge scope in India for strategic financial partnership where if you see the COVID, there were so many MSMEs there, they had to close down their shop, so many jobs that were lost because the foreign OEM is not ready to buy, or there's some major companies, the bigger company is not buying from the smaller one. At this point of time, I think SCF is very useful, and we should have a portal and technology to support this kind of a system. Coming to the dual use product and coming to our usage of various other sectors other than defense for defense companies. Now, we always have seen that we have started working on silos and thinking about only about defense. I think that's not right. Defense companies should be in a position to distribute not only dual use products but technologies. I believe Lockheed is more of a technology company than any time of a defense company. We believe that technology is the key, and we should be able to not only keep that with us, but also distribute and make it beneficial for all others. So this is what my I should say motto will be, or my communications are to this group. Any questions there? I'll be happy to answer that. Anything?
Thank you.
Anyone?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rai Chaudhary, for such an exhaustive address on the wide scope of partnerships between MNCs and OEMs in India. I will now invite Mr. Manan Jaisinghani from Invest India, who would be speaking about the overview and capability of Indian defense industry. Mr. Jaisinghani, please, can you hear me? Mr. Manan Jaisinghani.
Sir, kindly unmute yourself. No. You are still not audible. Jaya, can you meanwhile invite the next speaker?
Hi, am I audible now?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Would you be sharing the presentation or should I share it?
You can do it at your end.
Yes. Is it visible?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So sorry about the technical glitch. Good afternoon. And my name is Manan Jaisinghani. I'm part of Invest India from the Defense and the Aerospace team. Firstly, before I deep dive into the sector, I would like to preface it with two observations. Firstly, India is a market whose position has changed in the international system. Whether it's the Wassenaar arrangement or entry into the missile technology control regime or the STA-1 status, it has never been easier to strategically partner with India. And as a result, we're seeing world-class partnerships emerge between Indian industry and global OEMs. We just heard Mr. Partha Roy Chaudhary from Lockheed talk about his partnership with the Tatas. Secondly, India has 7,500 kilometers of coastline and 15,000 kilometers of land borders which we share with 5 countries. And the theaters in which our armed forces are asked to operate can be as extreme as minus 40 degrees at Siachen and 50 plus degrees at Thar Desert. This does to an extent dictate our defense production requirements. The one predominant trend that ties together all these numbers is that in recent years, there has been significant improvement in India's domestic defense production and export capabilities, and that the domestic sector has matured into a hub for defense manufacturing. If you look at the overall defense production, we have seen an 80% increase in last 5 years and touched $12 billion in 2019. And defense exports in the same period have also witnessed a tenfold increase, with defense export permissions touching $1.5 billion in March 2019. In recent years, policymakers have also been mindful of the changing composition of the defense budget. Over the past few budget cycles, we've seen that the share of expenditure of revenue and defense pensions has been increasing. So in order to squeeze the most out of the capital acquisition budget, it is essential that we focus on the procurement of indigenous platforms. India's armed forces have drawn up comprehensive plans for modernizing and qualitatively upgrading our capabilities for future combat. India plans to spend over US $150 billion in the short to medium term to upgrade equipment across all 3 services. The government is equally committed to undertaking this modernization drive through indigenous manufacturing. The Make in India campaign was introduced in 2014, and we are already seeing levels of self-reliance in defense production. India is part of a very small group of countries that design and develop trainer and fighter jets, military and transport helicopters, and military transport aircraft. Currently, all major naval and submarine warships are under construction in Indian shipyards, and 75% of the total acquisition orders of the Indian Army are with Indian firms. The government has set a target of 70% self-reliance in defense manufacturing by 2027, and there is every indication that we will achieve this target. In 2020, India released its defense production and export promotion policy. And going forward, as articulated under the policy, there will be focus areas of defense manufacturing. Over the next 15 years, across various acquisition programs, the total engine requirement in terms of number of units could be close to 4,500 to 5,000 aero engines. Indian industry has already developed competencies in the design and development of both rotary and fixed wing platforms. So the next stage in the evolutionary process is to create expertise for developing core technologies for aero engines. Similarly, India is already the 3rd largest aviation market in the world, and our civil aircraft fleet is expected to quadruple to 2,380 in the next 15 years. And there has been several policy interventions specific to tax rationalization in order to make the business case for setting up MROs and making it more favorable in India. And this will reduce our import dependence, particularly in the components and engine MRO segments. We are also notifying a list of critical materials and technologies for which R&D strategies will be developed to attain indigenization. Moving on to the defense industrial corridors, the government has announced 2 dedicated defense industrial corridors in the state of Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh to act as clusters of defense manufacturing that leverage existing infrastructure and human capital. Both corridors lie in geographically advantageous positions, allow for the state's significant human capital to be effectively employed and have conducive manufacturing policies that encourage defense manufacturing. With 120 plus companies, Tamil Nadu has a strong aerospace component manufacturing base. The state has also produced over 5,000 aerospace engineers every year. UP has a strong ancillary base with the highest number of MSMEs in India and is amongst the top 5 exporting states in the country. And with the 9 ordnance factories and 3 units of HAL, it it also has a developed defense manufacturing base. India is also focusing on forward-looking initiatives that seek to capitalize on India's thriving startup ecosystem. With over 50,000 plus startups, 18 homegrown tech unicorns, and US 100 billion in valuations, India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And we are uniquely positioned to leverage our engineering and entrepreneurial talent for the development of pioneering technologies in defense. A significant initiative in this regard is the Innovations for Defense Excellence program launched by the Honorable Prime Minister to provide MSMEs, startups, individual innovators with funding to carry out R&D, which has potential for future adoption of Indian and defense aerospace needs. 44 startup winners have been identified through Defense India Startup Challenge for product technology development, and $5.4 million has already been sanctioned for grant funding. Now, if we map the A&D manufacturing ecosystem in India, there are 41 ordnance factory bureaus, ordnance factories, and 9 public sector companies that are engaged in defense manufacturing. Their combined output is over $9 billion annually. Their manufacturing expertise covers a wide range of products across land, naval, air, and homeland segments, and includes subsystems such as avionics and electronic warfare suits to end products such as surface-to-air weapon systems, artillery systems, missile destroyers, corvettes, stealth frigates, submarines, and rotary and fixed-wing platforms. The share of the private sector manufacturing in the share of the private sector, the share of the private sector manufacturing in the sector is also increasing and has already touched US 2.4 billion. And with the Indian companies tapping into the export market, this number projected to significantly increase in the coming years. 10 years, 15 years ago, it would have been very easy to make a distinction between private and public sector manufacturing. Today, that distinction is not entirely accurate due to the higher levels of integration between the two across the value chain. The private sector is increasingly taking up the bulk of the manufacturing responsibilities for several major acquisition programs. For example, for the recently cleared $6.6 billion deal for the 83 LCA, HAL has developed 50 Tier 1 and over 500 Tier 2 and Tier 3 Indian partners to meet the production needs for the program. Similarly, for the DRDO designed Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher system, an order for 6 regiments has been placed with Tata and L&T. I'm going to use the next few slides to give you a brief snapshot of some success stories under the Make in India program. The Integrated Missile Development Program was conceived in the 1980s with the singular purpose of achieving comprehensive expertise in the field of missile technology, including propulsion, guidance, critical materials, and so forth. The Akash medium-range surface-to-air missile is one of several successful outcomes from the program and has been cleared for export. The Akash weapon system can simultaneously engage multiple targets in group mode or autonomous mode. It has built-in electronic countermeasure features. The entire weapon system has been configured on mobile platforms and is operational with the Indian Air Force as well as the Indian Army. The Indian scientific community was able to leverage the learnings from the Integrated Missile Development Program for the development of several other missile systems. On the right, we have the aforementioned Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher, which can neutralize an area of 3,500 square meters at a range of 60 kilometers. And the left, we have the Astra all-weather day and night BVR air-to-air missile system, which has a range of 160 kilometers and can fly at speeds of 4.5 Mach. We also have the BrahMos fired and forget cruise missile, which is the world's first and only supersonic cruise missile currently in operation with all 3 services. As an Indo-Russian JV, it also enjoys the reputation of being the gold standard in defense collaboration between India and a foreign nation. India has embarked on an ambitious field artillery rationalization plan, under which there is a requirement of over 2,000 guns of all types for artillery regiments. The 155 mm and 52 cal advanced towered artillery gun system developed under this modernization program set a world record by hitting targets at a range of 48 kilometers. Similarly, L&T has received the largest contract given to any Indian private company from the Indian Ministry of Defense for delivering of 100 155 mm 52 caliber track self-propelled howitzer guns, of which 91 guns have already been delivered. I'm sure this number has already increased by now. If we talk about aerial platforms, the Indian industry has manufacturing experience of over 4,000 fixed wing and rotary wing platforms. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, along with its supply partners, has the capability to design and manufacture an entire spectrum of aircraft, from basic trainer aircraft such as the HTT-40, which will be used for stage 1 training of Indian Air Force pilots, to the 4+ generation light combat aircraft, which not only has a superb safety record, it will also form the backbone of the Indian Air Force fleet for the 21st century. Both the LCH and the ALH are being featured as the Make in India Pavilion at Aero India this year. The LCH is the only combat helicopter of its kind to operate at 16,000 feet above sea level, whereas the ALH is a 5.5 ton class twin engine multi-role helicopter with over 300 ALH in service with the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Firstly, Indian shipyards have the expertise to build a wide range of platforms, inclusive of aircraft carriers, frigates, corvettes, submarines, OPVs, FPVs, tankers, bulk carriers, etc. Furthermore, these platforms have a proven track record as they are operational with multiple naval forces across varied maritime theaters. Secondly, these shipyards have world-class infrastructure and are capable of modular and simultaneous construction and refit of multiple ships. These shipyards leverage their large pool of naval architects and engineers, and all design and engineering activities are undertaken in-house. The government has set a target of achieving $5 billion in A&D exports by 2025. A large portion of their target is going to be met in Indian Tier 1 and Tier 2 companies that have been able to successfully integrate into the supply chain of global OEMs and are exporting components, structures, and assemblies from India. Companies like Dynamatic Technologies, Tata, are registered Tier 1 vendors for Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Airbus, and the like. To give you an example, Tata's JV with Boeing is the sole producer of fuselages for Apache A64 helicopters. Similarly, Tata's JV with Lockheed Martin has delivered over 100 empennages for the C-130J transport aircraft. Tata Sikorsky is also exclusive manufacturer of cabins for the S-92 helicopters, including Marine One, which is used by the US President. Over and above, components and assemblies, India has also been exporting end products to various jurisdictions. Again, this is not an absolutely comprehensive list, but a small snapshot of the Make in India products that have been exported globally, in addition to what was featured on the previous slides. Similarly, the Bell developed coastal surveillance system, which uses multiple radars and sensors to provide a composite operating picture of an entire coastline, has been exported to Seychelles, Maldives, Mauritius, and is being also used by the Indian Coast Guard for maritime surveillance application. I think this will be a good segue into the next presentation. So I will, conclude my remarks here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manan, for giving an overview and elaborating upon the capacity of Indian defense industry. Audience, before we move on to our last address, we'll have a question and answer session at the end. All the participants are requested to mention their questions in the chat box along with the name, who you want the answer from. I will now invite Mr. P.C. Tripathi, President, Defense and Strategic Industries Association of India, who will speak about increasing strategic and technological cooperation among nations in defense sector. Mr. Tripathi, please.
Yeah, can you hear me? Am I audible? Thank you for inviting me to this session, afternoon session on strategic partnerships in the defense sector. In fact, let me introduce myself before we run an organization called Defense and Strategy Industry Association. It was founded in 2013, and I was one of the founding members of this organization. And principal motivation behind starting the organization was once we had come out of the international global technology control regimes post the signing of a nuclear deal in 2006. India became open to globalization in the arena of high technology commerce also. And it's important to understand that, what was the scenario about the high technology commerce or the technological sophistication of our own industry before 2006, when we were not part of the most important global technology regime, that is Wassenaar Arrangement, which controls all the flow of dual-use technologies. And these high technologies are basically controlled in the two domains, both in the private and the government sector. The government's control in the Western countries, if you look at it, Europe, America, or the so-called which are the leaders in their military technologies, most of their these companies which are leading in the defense business, they're basically publicly funded, if you look at it, and that's why the intellectual property, the technologies that are owned, they're tightly controlled through the state regulations. And the secondary controls come from the companies which the technologies that they create by their own innovations and then protect them through the intellectual property regimes worldwide. So 2006 onward, and that also was the time when India, we were trying to think of indigenizing our defense production and keeping the global trend of countries all trying to develop their own independence and at the same time becoming interdependent on the global commerce. It was important to create to look into these new areas, the emerging businesses across the world. Now, what we did was we tried to bring across small and medium enterprises. We're a small organization that's still growing, and because we are focused into specific areas of robotics, artificial intelligence, which are the emerging technology companies, and also our members also are basically extremely new entrepreneurs, which is kind of engineers, scientists, then who investing basically into the cutting edge research and start making startups into internet economy, etc. So that's what we do is we try to basically create joint ventures between foreign companies, try to and the Indian startups and those who have picked up cutting edge some specific technologies within the materials, robotics, or bio with this thing technology, etc. Many areas are there. If you recall, if you know that the defense procurement policy identifies some 10 areas of this thing, we were focused on those. So what we have been doing is participating into international conferences physically and also now post-COVID era in the virtual platforms, and trying to connect the supply chains of the defense manufacturers world over with the Indian companies. So what we can understand that what we're creating a massive supply chain of component assemblies, sub-assemblies, as previous speakers have already pointed out, is key to building up a defense industrial complex. Now, strategic partnership model is basically it sits at the top of this whole pyramid. And these are the strategic partners, like the big companies like Tata's, Mahindra's, who are assembling the main platforms, are basically system integrators. And what we need is they're already doing at Lockheed Martin. The gentleman who spoke from they're saying they have been creating an ecosystem of tier two vendors which will be mastering these cutting edge technologies and becoming the feeders ultimately to these main platforms. So this organization is basically focused on that. But I need to just dwell upon what exactly has been the achievements in terms of over the last 5 years. EPC has taken a good initiative to bring its members into this manifold, because EPC is a very large organization, and it's in the engineering sector. There are thousands of companies and vendors who are curious about what exactly is the defense business and how we should try to get enter into it. So what happening is, initially, if you see the defense procurement policy, when it was since 2006, the first version, and even before, we were focused more on technology transfers, and the main participants were the public sector undertakings and the ordnance factories. Most of the equipments, weapons that were being bought under the TOT procedures, they went to the public sector undertakings, and their policy was in a process of making till 2014, and the various committees came in, and their recommendations took shape of the defense procurement policies. And in 2016, government came up with a more firm document. It's also now very clear that this is a defense procurement policies of work in progress. A lot of good intentions are there. A lot of efforts are being put in, and we are learning a lot through trial and error, which is the only way to learn. And today we have reached a state in 2018 when strategic partnership program was announced, and apart from that, the foreign direct investment in the defense business was liberalized to 49% from 26, and now it has come down to 70. It has come to 75, 74% through automatic route, and 100% into areas where critical technology is subject to approval. So we are at this stage, and also the whole pyramid of procurement in the defense procurement procedures have been inverted by giving first preference to the India designed and Indian manufactured companies, and then go down to the buy India, buy and make, and then use. I think these are details. And finally, buy global. The strategic partnerships that were conceived were basically a kind of a very critical policy issue, because what we need to do is we procure weapon systems. There is no Indian company. We don't have any serious military industrial base even till today, despite whose public sector undertaking investments in public sectors, 9 DBSU ordnance factories. Yet, if you look at it, our technological sophistication and their ability to produce equipment and systems for our military's needs has been so much wanting. And when it comes to critical challenges or the sudden conflicts of military, we tend to procurements. And you must have, like during Kargil, if we had to buy even the artillery shells on emergency basis from South Africa, from a company which was blacklisted when imported for force guns. So this is part of a complex economic strategy that we are trying to build up into a military procurement policy. So now what is the situation today is that Indian companies in the strategic partnership model will be required to basically, there will be some companies that, as I was already chosen, will be given the platforms, the main platforms like helicopters, fighter aircrafts, armored personnel, the combat vehicles, submarines. These are 3-4 areas which have already been identified, and the acceptance of necessity, expression of interest, RFPs have already been issued. And I think I need not go into detail because that would require somebody from the defense ministry or someone when next time you can elaborate on the recent progress in these areas. But it's important to understand that there are two things that are happening. One is there is a tremendous curiosity in the enterprises, whether in the large or the small, about the opportunities that are coming up in military industrial businesses and the opportunities through the policy and the plans that are being put in place by the government from time to time. That itself is very encouraging. But at the bottom level, what are the key factors which will be required to promote the military industry complex in India? What we try to tell people that at the root of, at the base of all defense business is something called high technology, cutting edge technologies. If you look at the history of technologies, every time a new innovation was created, much of it was funded, initiated, or motivated by war matters and the conflicts involved. I mean, that would be a very general statement, but if you look at into that, military and the defense and security has been the primary focus of innovation for individuals or the nations at all. So the globalization, the subject that I was given to speak was increasing technological cooperation among nations is part of the globalization that is already underway. And now post-COVID, if you look at it, this has taken a new face and become openly so high tech that we are holding conferences. We never dreamt 2 years ago that we will be having a online web conference on, and so often, and at such a ease, and that people can be brought at a number of times on the same platform to share ideas and exchange views. So this, I'm sorry, I've lost this thing. So the strategic partnership in the areas, there are a lot of the objections that companies because are facing. Like for instance, there's an anomaly, the major anomaly that has come up is that if you want to have a joint venture, 74% ownership can be given to foreigners, but in the strategic partner route, only 49% is allowed. Now, this is something now those who the OEMs, which are overseas companies, which are basically making the major defense exporters in the world today, whether in Europe, Israel, America, or China even today, they would not like to part with their technologies and their know-how unless they get full control of their investments or the joint ventures in the country of the residence. They may shift to manufacturing, but technology transfer and sharing know-how, investing, these are very complex issues which we're trying to tackle now. I think India is now we're at least learning how to create a taught platform, how to create contract laws, how to create, protect intellectual property. And these are various measures that are already underway and a part of the policy process. So on the whole, I would say that I think the environment is very encouraging, and SMEs particularly can find a tremendous opportunity to learn and increase their technological sophistication by entering into military businesses. And essentially that would be a gateway for them to master the dual use technologies, which will ultimately give them benefit in the civilian business. And that is the main, at the core of the increasing our technological sophistication. I think there are a lot of topics to talk about, and on the policy front, on the implementation. But I think some of the speakers have already covered many areas through the good presentations that made. And I wasn't so structured in terms of making a point-wise presentation, but it would be interesting to cover up when the questions come up about the curiosity of the people who are participants and the companies who are interested. They would ask questions, and those questions would be the better way to disseminate and information and create an outreach in the subject. So I would like to close up there, and we can take up in the question answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tripathi, for your very informative address on increasing strategic and technological cooperation in defense sector. It's time now for question and answers. We saw a few questions in the chat box, which have already been answered by Mr. Partha from Lockheed Martin. If you have more questions, please come forward and also mention a name from whom you want the question to be answered. Do we have more questions from the audience? So it seems we have no more questions from the audience. So I will now invite Mr. Rohinton Engineer, Working Committee member of EPC India, to present a formal vote of thanks.
A very good evening to you all. It's my pleasure to propose this vote of thanks. I am thankful to our distinguished speakers who have been present today for this important country session on strategic partnership in defense sector. I am especially thankful to all the eminent panelists, Mr. Ravi Sehgal, immediate past president EPC, set today ball rolling, Captain Vikas Sood, Defense Advisor, High Commissioner of India, Colombo, Sri Lanka, Mr. Demake Albaro, Consul General, Ethiopia, Mumbai, Mr. Partha Rao Chaudhary, Commercial Lead, Lockheed Martin, India, Mr. Manan Jaisinghani, Invest India, Mr. Prakash Tripathi, President, Defense and Strategic Industries Association of India. You all for sparing your time with us today to make this extremely informative presentation about the strategic partnership between India and other countries in the defense sector. To increase defense-related exports from India and to promote domestic industry, it is important that India engages with more and more countries in this sector. It is also important in enriching the knowledge of our Indian exporters and thereby to enhance their competitiveness. Also, the global space and defense industry is now categorized by many supply chains at various tiers. Establishment of long-term strategic partnership between various countries and the Indian private sector through global OEMs through a transparent and competitive process to seek the technology transfer will enable the setting up of domestic manufacturing infrastructure and supply chains, thus benefiting the Indian MSME. My special thanks to Department of Commerce, Government of India, Department of Defense Production, Ordnance Factory Board, UPEIDA, Government of Uttar Pradesh, for the tremendous support for this event today. My special thanks also go once again to Mr. Ravi Sehgal, immediate past president EPC, for his presence with us and setting the tone for this discussion today. I am also thankful to the industry representatives present today here with us who have given a patient listening to today's session. We will provide all necessary support to the industry in handholding them in their efforts to reach new shores during these challenging times. We thank all the participants for the involvement today and also for the last program that we had on the Indian Railways Sourcing Week, and it was also a grand success. I also congratulate Team EPC India for this visionary approach to organize this program in a seamless manner on this virtual platform. Jai Hind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. With this, we have come to the close of today's session on strategic partnerships. Once again, I thank all the speakers for enriching this session with highly valuable information. All the participants as well for making this session a big success. Thank you.